Today, I'm gonna teach you how to give a woman a type of orgasm that is so rare that barely any women on the planet have actually experienced it yet, which will make you a sexual superstar. If you know exactly what you are doing, then you can actually make a woman orgasm purely by playing with her nipples. Now, you're gonna have to be patient because this can take a bit of time, it can take a bit of nuance. In today's video, I'm gonna go through step by step all of the different techniques that you can use to make this orgasm happen for your woman. Now here's a fun fact. The nipples are actually connected to the genital cortex via nerve pathways. And stimulating the nipples actually stimulates the same parts of the brain as genital stimulation. So it's not that surprising that women can orgasm purely through nipple stimulation. And once you master this technique, it's not only just another tool in your toolkit, something awesome that you can pull out of the bag when you're in an intimate situation with a woman, but in a way it's almost teasing. Because while you're stimulating her nipples and getting her to climax that way, she's simultaneously feeling the kinds of stimulation and sensations that are making her genitals highly aroused and really fired up and ready for regular penetrative sex. So this is a fantastic foreplay tool for you to implement in the bedroom. That's not only gonna get your woman turned on, but it's also gonna get her so fired up, so aroused that she's gonna be ripping your clothes off. So how exactly do we accomplish the nipple orgasm? Step one, start off slow. Slowly stimulate the breasts. You don't want to rush in there. This isn't something that it's not a race. We're not going to get there in, a matter of seconds or even a couple of minutes. This is going to require some patience and some practice, to be honest. But start off slowly and sensually and just bringing stimulation and blood flow to her breasts. So don't use too much force or too much pressure to start off with. We're trying to gauge how responsive she is. The next step is to warm up her areolas. Those are the dark circles that are around her nipples. You can start by playing with them with your hands or with your mouth, whichever you prefer, but you can start to bring the blood flow there as well. And notice how we're working from the outside in to make sure the blood is flowing in all the correct areas before we directly stimulate the nipples themselves. Step three, direct her attention and focus to the nipples. Now this is where dirty talk comes into play. Now it doesn't have to be over the top, it can simply be you telling her to focus on her nipples, because what it's going to do is going to bring her focus there, and it's also going to bring an element of anticipation before, again, remind you, this is before we've even touched her nipples, right? So we're playing around them, which is obviously going to bring her attention more directly towards those nipples, and it's gonna build this anticipation, which will increase the sensitivity and pleasure she will receive when we eventually do start stimulating her nipples as well. So dirty talk and directing her focus and attention towards her nipples, very, very useful in amplifying all of the sensations we're trying to give her. Now you can start using your mouth and your tongue, again, slowly, gently, but teasing her nipples. You don't wanna go too extreme with biting and using teeth and stuff, because you're not exactly sure how sensitive she is yet. Some women absolutely love having their nipples like bitten, actually rather hard in some cases, and other women hate it. It's way, way, way too painful for them. So you need to find like where her sweet spot is and gauge this. And a good way of actually gauging this is by rolling the nipples between your teeth. You're not biting. So this you can actually use to gauge how much pressure and intensity, I guess you could say, she likes on her nipples. Obviously, you're listening to her, you're looking at her body language, you're looking at her face, you're listening to her visual and audible cues and responses to what you're doing. The whole way there, you're gauging to see exactly how much pressure and intensity she likes and she enjoys. Technique number 5. So once you've kind of lubed up the nipples a little bit with some saliva, with your mouth, with your teeth, with your tongue, step back a bit and start using your fingers. Start playing with her nipples like that. And in fact, an even better way to do this is to get her to play with her nipples herself and simply observe how she does it. Does she rub her nipple in circles? Does she pinch them? Does she pull in one direction or another? What does she do exactly? And then you can just simply copy that exact motion, that exact technique. And in fact, you can get her to do this kind of nipple stimulation in previous sex sessions, say when you're going down on her or when you're, penetrating her. So you can watch and observe the way she's doing it and then make a mental note of that. Then when it comes to trying to get her off using nipple stimulation, then you can pull that trick out of the bag without really bringing it to her attention and making a big deal out of it. You don't want her to get in her head and kind of feel like she has to perform or she has to deliver a certain result for you. That's the antithesis of the mental frame of mind we want a woman in order to get her to orgasm. Number 6, if she happens to really like intense nipple play, well, this is a great opportunity to use nipple clamps. And you can use nipple clamps during penetrative sex as well. You can start to incorporate this toy in the bedroom and play around with it a little bit. While the nipples themselves are clamped, you can still also stimulate, depending upon how erect her nipples are, how long they are, and how big your nipple clamps are. You can still play with the very front of her nipple as well. So you give her 2 different kinds of stimulation. You give her the pressure of the nipple clamps and you get the direct finger stimulation on the front of the nipple, on the nerve endings there as well. So there's a few things being played with here, which can really amplify this sensation. Another way of amplifying her sensations is to use ice cubes. So this idea of cold on her warm body. You can keep the ice cubes in your mouth or you can use them with your hands physically like that. And that contrast between the heat of your hands or the heat of your mouth versus the cold of the ice cube can really help to bring more attention, more focus, and more sensation to the nipples themselves. Fun fact, everybody is either left or right nippled. Even you, like this applies to women and men, oddly enough. So you can figure out which of her nipples is more sensitive and has more sensation in it, particularly by watching the way she plays with her own nipples during sex. And now that's the one that you want to focus most of your attention on. Let's say 2/3 of your attention on, and then don't neglect the other breast, don't neglect the other nipple, just to make sure that that more sensitive one actually doesn't get numb and desensitized, but also mixing up those sensations a bit can help to amplify her towards an orgasmic state. Technique number 9 is actually to pay attention and track her menstrual cycle. So believe it or not, the closer she is to ovulation, the more sensitive her nipples will be. So you can use this to your advantage. If you get her to have a period tracking app on her phone and then just give you access to it on your phone, you can track when she's closest to ovulation. Technique number 10, if for example, your woman has had kids or maybe she's breastfeeding and her nipples are really too sensitive or they're a bit damaged or dry, anhydrous lanolin is something that pregnant women have been using for centuries actually to heal the tissue of their nipples and restore sensitivity and restore feeling to them again. If your woman doesn't have heaps of sensitivity in her nipples, or maybe they're a bit dry and chapped or something like that, then anhydrous lanolin will fix that. In technique number 11, I'm going to give you the ultimate nipple orgasm position and technique combination, okay? Ideally, let's say you're sitting on the edge of the bed and have her sitting in your lap. You're both facing the same direction. The reason this is the ultimate nipple orgasm position is it's way more comfortable for you, and you can add a few more stimulatory elements into it very easily. This is far more comfortable. If a woman's sitting in my lap like this, I can play with her nipples very easily. I can kiss her on the neck, adding more stimulation up and down here. I can whisper in her ear, add the dirty talk element into it. I can play with her clitoris with one hand, play with her nipple with whichever one is more sensitive with my other hand. We can mix things up like this. We can also do this in front of a mirror and add another element, which is sort of the exhibitionist, voyeuristic mental element to that, which can help to push her over the edge into orgasm and make her climax. But most importantly, this is way more comfortable than me, say, being in front of her and trying to play with the nipples like that. If she's sitting in my lap and we're both facing the same direction, way more comfortable for me, kind of like a spoon in the same sense. So it's a lot more intimate for her. It's erotic if we have a mirror there, like I said, if you're whispering in her ear, kissing her on the neck, doing all these things simultaneously will help to push her over the edge into orgasm. Now it's time for another super secret sexual technique. So if you want to learn how to turn her into a human fire hose and unravel the mystery of squirting, then check out this video right over here.